Hey.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Hopefully, you're having a good Friday so far. It is another episode of MillenniYell with Billy and Mel. What is going on, guys? And big news today, we're episode 21. So you know what that means? This podcast is legally able to have a beer.
We're legal.
So
That's hilarious.
we are here, guys. We have a great podcast set up for you today. We're going to be talking about customer service, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the whole nine, our experiences. We'll even share some of the things that we do in our own business to further our customer service. And I don't know if you caught it yesterday, Mel, but Derek over in Central PA did a podcast, did a live video on customer service. I caught a little bit of it. It was really good. So if you have an opportunity, if you follow that page, go check that page out. Support local business. But Mel, what is going on? How are you doing? How's your week been?
Week's good. Yeah, had some interesting customer service issues this week that I'd love to yell about today. That I was, my inner Karen coming out. But
the manager.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, week's good. And yeah, speaking of legal and drinks, I had a meeting last night that turned into an invitation to a little girls' night, and had one too many of of them. So no, it's funny.
Just one too many
time. Being
adult beverages.
Yeah, being spontaneous. The meeting turned into girls' fun. Thirsty Thursday apparently.
Well, there you go. I mean, sometimes you need that opportunity to blow some steam off, right? But yeah, I think this is an interesting topic, just because I think we've all experienced really bad customer service, but also a lot of us are in customer service. So to hear it from both sides of the spectrum, I think is really interesting, because at the end of the day, no matter what business you're in, or if you're walking into a place, most people deal with people, right? And that's the hardest thing about running a business, is dealing with people, right? So, I think a good segue is just to kind of, talk about like why, or what do you look for in good customer service? I think it's a good way to start off.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's no matter what industry you're in. You're right. It's anyone that's dealing with people that you have to interact with, and we both do that on a daily basis, obviously, with our businesses. But I think that it also goes back to the service before, during, and after, like the purchase. So you have, obviously, it's something that isn't just while you're interacting. I mean, it's things afterwards, but I think that it's how you interact with the customer, how obviously on our end, when we're the customer, showing empathy. I think there's definitely stuff behind that, putting yourself in their perspective and their shoes. But I like communication. I think for me, great customer service, it's not only how you treat somebody and positive and thankful and respect, but it's just being able to communicate effectively. That's some of the issues that I've been having with people not being responsive.
That.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different components that make up good customer service, and when you know it, it's great. And I love to share when I've had really great service. I think it gets underappreciated and shared when it's good. But obviously, what do we say? If you have bad service, if you have great service, you're going to tell one or two people. If you have bad service, you're going to tell the world, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was just doing some stat reading from a website I pulled up. I guess it's called, it's like it's in Indeed. And they said, I think if for every bad experience, a person will tell about 25 people, where if you have a great experience, it's like 6 or 7 people you're going to tell.
Right. It's true. So,
yeah. And so I think for me too, I know we're going to get into towards the end, we're going to talk about some things that we do in our business from a great customer, for giving great customer service. But I think one thing that I look for is that I understand simply from being in the restaurant industry, hotel industry, that's a tough industry to be in when it comes to customer service. I mean, there's so much expectation. I mean, with any business, there's a lot of expectation. But what I look for too is that not every customer that comes through your place is going to have a great experience, right? People are going to come in, they're going to be upset about something that's going on in their life, but it gives you a great opportunity to turn their day around. However, I like to see the response to a bad situation happening in an experience along those lines. So I could be having a bad experience in a restaurant, right? But something makes up for it. How do they make up for it? How do they rectify the situation at that moment? Because you really have two choices. Either you can just let the situation play out and just kind of just hopefully it ends really quickly, or you can try to make a better situation, and try to turn the experience around the best possible way you can. So that's what I tend to look for, is a real telltale sign of good customer service. Because like I said, you're not going to always be on your A game every day of the week. It's just impossible.
Well, yeah. And then I think, things come up. People are stressed, especially during COVID now. Tensions are high. People don't want to deal with situations. So they just don't deal with the situation instead of facing it and just having, like I said, having those conversations and resolving things. It's not good to not do anything at all, obviously. But I think absolutely that I read something about that, customer service, like the success of the service depends on that the employee or, us or your employee and whoever, on how they adjust themselves to the guest, like to the personality of the guest. And it goes back to us talking about those color codes in how, as a leader, how do you work with people with different personalities? I think it's the same exact thing with customer service. That someone comes in and you can kind of tell how they are in their personality a little bit, and you have to deal with different people differently with their personalities too.
I mean, and it's not just external customers, right? We're also dealing with internal customers, right? People within your business, people within your organization. I think it's just as important to give great customer service there, because those are the people that you're working with, right? We've talked about that, and that goes into hand in hand with the color codes, understanding how to build relationships with certain types of people, certain types of personalities. And it's the same thing with your regular customers. The only thing that's different in my mind is that if you can give great customer service if you are, if you can recognize what type of person that is quickly. Because for some of us, for me and you, we're with our customers for a longer period of time, right? But not everybody has that ability to build that relationship. So you got to be able to build a very quick relationship. If you're working at McDonald's, right, you got to be able to build a great relationship really quickly, because you don't have as much time with that client. So I think that's a big thing too. Kind of goes along with the color code like you were talking about. So
yeah, and it's funny. I mean, we all joke about how there's people in the customer service industry that really shouldn't be in the customer service industry, that they don't like, dealing with people sometimes. But I think too, it's really good to talk about, because especially now with trying to with businesses and during the pandemic and people losing businesses, maybe there's better things that they could be doing with customer service right now, especially to retain those customers. Because when you're retaining those customers or you're making them happier, depending on what industry it is, you're going to get more money. They're going to come back. They're going to be happy with the experience. And there was something I read. It was like 86% of customers stopped doing business with a company because of a bad experience. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. So I think, I think that it's definitely about the interaction. There's a lot of different aspects of it, but I think, going back to what were some of the things that we look at that I appreciate or value in service, is just that response, like having a response and how quickly you can respond to the situation. Look at all the online review apps these days, right? that somebody could go on and have a bad experience. And yeah, Peggy's right. I don't know if you want to pop that up, but I see the comment there. You know, you only have one opportunity to impress someone, and it's absolutely true. I think that we, you know, and if there is a bad experience, I mean, obviously we talk about great customer service, but with bad, it's just the same. But like, how do you respond as quickly to somebody's needs? I've done some things in the past where I didn't respond as quickly as I should because I was busy or overwhelmed, and you know, I delivered a great product and a great service and a great quality and all that, but my response time was slow, and that is what got me, you know, in a couple times. And it's how quickly you respond. And I think, you know, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You said something that was really interesting. You know, that, you know, about I think it was like 86 or 81% of people will leave a business because of a bad experience. Think about this. I'm just looking at one of these stats, is that investing in a new customer, so retaining, why it's important to retain your customers is because it's between 5 and 25 times more expensive to get a new customer than it is to retain a customer. So that's huge, right? Here's another comment that just popped up. People are much more likely to tell someone about a bad experience than a good one.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what we were just saying that. Yeah.
We were just talking about that. I think I said that, what was it, like a person will tell 15 people that had a bad experience versus just people. I mean, I'm going to say this and I'm probably going to step on some toes, but people love to complain. Okay. Like people, it's like watching, well, I mean, like I've given this example many times before, like you watch the news and it's an hour-long show, right? 49 minutes or 59 minutes is all bad, and then 1 minute of something positive that happened, right? So people want there are people out there that look to complain. They just look for it, right? The Karens.
Oh yeah, well, and it takes the Karens, right? Especially now, but I also think, you know, it takes a lot for me to complain. Like I definitely will be patient and you know, see how it pans out, or, you know, or maybe it's just not a big deal. It's not something to complain about. Like if I'm complaining, it's bad.
Yeah.
Because I don't really try to let things bother me that bad. Like it has to be pretty bad for me to really complain. But I think in that is, you know, it's hard looking for the outcome that you want if it's that bad already. But I think too, you know, fixing the mistakes, like we said, it's not only the response time in how you know, when you get back to somebody with a service, but it's also showing that empathy and saying that you're going to go the extra mile. It's that, not just the thank yous and the please and the, you know, the nice things and how you speak to people, but how are you going to resolve it? And this goes back to I've differed in my life and in my professions and businesses of the quote, the customer is always right, right? Customer is always right. And at some point I had a couple experiences that I said, you know what? No, the customer isn't always right.
No,
you know, and sometimes they're just not our customer. You know, we have to know your customers too. That's another thing about good customer service, is knowing your customers and who they are. And, you know, that's something else, is a whole nother topic. But yeah, I think that goes back to the entitled, you know, the thing is, I'm always right, I'm this and that, but you're not always. You know, I think that there's situations, I've been on both sides of that. Have you felt like,
oh my God, yeah. Like, I mean, like you said, the customer thinks that they're always right. I mean, there's a difference between the customer. That's why I hate that statement. The customer is not always right. Like earlier in my career, like getting out of college, right, and getting into the hospitality world, you know, you're just trying to find your managerial kind of footing, how you're going to be, what you're going to be like as a manager. And early on in my career, I would allow people to walk all over me, regardless of the situation, regardless if they were in the complete wrong. You know, I'd be like, oh, well, the customer's always has to be right, or else we're going to lose this customer. And, like for me, like I didn't stand up for myself in those situations, and I would just allow the customer to yell and scream at me. And that's another thing, is that I think why I'm a little bit more kind of like you, empathetic about what people are going through, right? And what people are, like for me, for instance, like I said, worked in the restaurant industry for a very long time. I can walk into a restaurant and know the difference between bad customer service or they're dealing with a lot of crazy stuff behind the scenes that I'm not seeing, right? Like if you walk into a restaurant and you see every table's full, servers running around with chickens with their head cut off, they're busy. Where I get pissed off is if I walk into a restaurant, there's not a soul in there, and I see servers standing, on their phones, and then it takes them 5 minutes to come over and get my drink, right? Or even just acknowledge them there. Then that's when I start to get mad, because I know that's not great customer service, right?
Well, and that goes back to, I think, the idea of the person of also trying to know someone's personality when you're dealing with them in customer service. But it's a really great point, is understanding the situation, because I was in a situation recently where I went into a business and I had reserved something, and then their system went down, and they told me that I would need to do it. I could go online. Well, then their website wasn't working because their system was down. Their internal, their whole system was down, and then their website was down, and they were doing something. And the girl was very apologetic. She, said, "I'm just so sorry. I would have had to go somewhere else, obviously." And it came back and it was working. But when I got that review card in the email to say, "How was your experience?" I said that it was okay. It wasn't the greatest, but I said that the girl, I know her name was Sylvia. I said she was great. I mean, the system was down, the website was down. She was doing everything that she could. And yeah, it was a bad experience at the start. I mean, it worked out, but it was how she dealt with it too. And how I reacted, and not being yelling and frustrated. And it was frustrating as anything, right? But it's it's like, look, it's not her fault. She's just as frustrated. I said, look, she said, I'm really sorry. I just said, look, I'd be frustrated. I understand, but I mean, it sucks, but knowing the situation versus, like understanding it a little bit more.
Here's something interesting. Just went through the old noggin here. How many times have you ever, like, you're at a place of business, right? You're having a great time. You're having a great experience. Not even a great experience. You're just having a normal experience, right? And you're noticing somebody else having a bad experience and they're complaining, but then you're in your mind, you're like, what they're complaining about is really stupid, and they're going over the top about everything in the business, and you just want to.
Right.
There have actually been times where I've stepped in the middle of another conversation to defend the person that was working there, because they were being over the top. Have you ever had that situation, or have you ever?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we've all been somewhere that somebody was complaining about something, and absolutely. But that just brought up another point to managers reprimanding the employees in front of customers. And that was a huge thing for me. And like, go in the back or tell them later or something. I don't like when, I think that's bad service. It's bad service to your employee, but I think it's in front of the customer. That's another thing that, you want to watch how you act in front of your customers to the employees.
Yeah. Too. I mean, there has been opportunities where I have not yelled at a server before in front of customers per se, didn't like scold them, but there was a situation where I had a server fighting, not physically, but had an altercation, was yelling and screaming back and forth with the customer, and I did have to raise my voice, get to the back, like, we're going to talk about this, right? But I think, like, I was going along the lines of stepping in, I've even stepped in and defended, people that I'm working with, I'll be like, hey, you can't talk to us any type of way. That's a big thing too. about customer service is how you talk, right? How are you addressing that person, right? Because just like in the situation that you had with that girl, right? She could have been frustrated. She could have been very short with you, but like, listen, I'm doing everything I can, right? Like I, it's not my fault. Get off my back, right?
Right.
And that could have been a whole different, like, even though you sympathize and she's going through a bad situation, her just being remorseful and just being like, listen, I'm so sorry. I think a big way is delivery of customer service. Is that because, like I said before, you're not always going to be able to deliver great news to a customer. Sometimes you have to deliver bad news, right?
Well, yeah, and it doesn't help when you're working with brides and they,
I know.
And there's a printing error on their wedding invitation, that was sometimes not my fault at all, and sometimes it was. And yeah, I mean, I've had to deal with a lot of things. It's not just with brides, but fixing your mistakes, like I said. But how do you, are you waiting and not telling them that there was a mistake? Are you is it delaying things? Are you calling them? Are you emailing them? I had somebody, I think I sent them an email about doing something, and they just said, oh, I'd like you to call me about this or something. So there's different ways of how are you dealing with it. Are you not communicating, or are you picking up that phone and you're saying, hey, this is, this happened. But I think that I think it goes back to relationships. We were talking about that earlier too, is building these relationships with your customers, because there might not always be, might not always be in a situation where you're going to have a customer for life. But I think that if you look at the mentality of trying to build this relationship, that through customer service, that this is going to be a customer for life and it's a long-term thing, what that makes also, I think, a little bit more of an impact in how you're treating them, as if you're trying to keep them around forever. Yeah.
No, I just was thinking of an example where I gave bad customer service, because we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes and just have moments of lapses in judgment, right? Especially because we get emotional. And like I said, when you have somebody talking crazy to you, sometimes you just can't always hold it in. And I remember one time, I don't mind calling myself out, but I remember one time when I was working in a seafood department, and one of the things I hated to do was take the skin off the fish, because it was always just a pain in the butt. The knives were never sharp. I had to always sharpen the knives. That's internal customers, right? Like not doing what they need to do. And I remember, the guy, I cut the fish, I cut the skin off, and he said something along the lines of, he said something, he's like, well, why couldn't you have done that quicker? And I just lost it on him. And I just like, what are you talking about? Like, it literally took me a minute to get your fish done, sir. Like, I'm sorry that in your mind it took so long, or something like that. Like, like an underhanded, like, apology, but not really an apology. And he was like, well, I'm going to go make a customer complaint on you. And I was like, go ahead. I'll walk down there. And like,
that's funny. You were frustrated that also, you were taking it out, your frustrations on the fish.
But hindsight, should I have done that? No. But like, I am a human being. I'm going to make mistakes, and I've learned from that, right? To try to keep it. And I think that's a big thing, is having tough skin.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten thicker skin over the years too, for sure. And I think being firm but fair. Yeah, I always say that about certain leaders. I like that they're firm but fair. But yeah, I think it goes back to listening too. You want to listen to what the problem and the issue is, as well, is having being a good listener. But I forgot to say this earlier, was about when you have the expectations, you under promise and over deliver. So that was some of the things that I was telling you before about, like, responsiveness, or, oh yeah, I can get this done for you and like tomorrow. And then, something came up and I wasn't able to get it done. Well, why? Like making promises that you can't keep. So learning when you do make a mistake with customer service, how do you adapt and not make those mistakes again? I think you want to, so then after a while, I would say, okay, yeah, I need 3 to 5 business days, because I also don't want people thinking I'm, working weekends and nights, even though I am when I want to. So I think that's another thing of good customer service is being realistic with the time and the expectations too.
Yeah. So I think we should talk about some experiences. Like, what are some good experiences we've had, especially with companies, maybe certain companies, maybe a personal experience that you recently experienced not too long ago. I don't know. Maybe I'm foreshadowing or hinting, but I think for me, I'll go good first.
Okay.
A great experience is definitely. I don't know if you've ever been on a Disney cruise before, but probably the best customer service, probably besides Chick-fil-A, but best customer service experience I've ever had in my entire life. And it was just because of the attention to detail. Like you said, the way they speak to people, the way they address people, their total focus on the customer experience is by far, bar none, the best. But that I remember a Disney cruise. I've been on 2, and I think it was last summer, right? At this point, I can't remember. No, the summer before that, 2 years ago, I believe, we went on a Disney cruise, and it was, like I said, just what I love. One of the experiences I love is when you go to different places to dine and you have the same server over and over again, and it kind of builds that relationship. They get to know who you are, know your family, know some stuff about you, and kind of really tailor make that customer service to you. So, what about you? Good experience.
Yeah, I mean, no, I was going to say Disney is phenomenal with their service and their training. People's they have businesses.
It's a Millennial top brand, by the way.
Oh yeah, well, businesses go down there to train their employees through Disney. So I think that's an absolute. That's definitely a really great one. Well, I'd have to think about a really, really great one, because my mind is so clouded by the really, really bad one I wanted to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I think, I have a friend that owns a boutique I'll give her a little shout out, but Miranda owns Hello Gorgeous, and every time somebody walks in the door, a woman, but it's like, hello, gorgeous, every single person, every time that door opens. And I think that they say hello, handsome to the guys that walk in. But they're just really great consistently overall with what they do and their message. And, I've never had a bad experience there. I think it's nice to have conversations. Yeah, I'm friends with her and her mom and that, but, I like when you're at places and you know that they're building relationships with you, and they're not I don't know. I think that's a good one, but
that is a good one.
I'll think of some really good ones. But.
So we'll get into a bad one, right? I'll share one that I have, and then obviously the floor is yours because you have a more recent one than I do. But a terrible experience I remember having. And I don't often go to fast food restaurants just because I'm trying to eat better. But every once in a while, you just crave like a hamburger or something, like something quick, right? And I remember walking into this place, and I won't say any names. I'll leave it to the imagination. I walk into this place and walk in there, and there's not a soul in there. There's like a couple customers. They're all kind of just standing around, but there's not a soul in the working area. I'm sitting there for about 2-3 minutes. I'm like, no, what the heck is going on? So finally, I asked some of the customers around me, I'm like, what's going on? They're like, hey, we don't know. We haven't even ordered yet. So I literally walk into the prep area and I look into the back room.
Hello.
Like, hey, anybody here? And all of them were out in the back smoking.
Oh, no.
They were like, oh, we didn't know anybody was out there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you work at a fast food restaurant. Like, anybody can show up at any given time. Like, are you kidding me? Like, and they're like, well, we can cook you food now. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, after seeing you, like, I understand people smoke and, stuff like that, and then come back into the restaurant. Hopefully they wash their hands. But it just totally turned me off, right? I was like, nah, like, thank you for not allowing me to spend my money here and not waste my time. I can't get back the last 5 minutes of my life, but I really appreciate it. And I never do this. I actually call corporate and let them know what actually happened. But I was just so unbelievably mad because it's just like a lack of, awareness, a lack of, not like there's some people out there that need jobs, right? And like you have a job, even though it's not a job you might like to do, right? It's not where you want to be. Like for me, I give 100% in any job I've ever been in just because, that's just my personality. But like I was thankful to have a job because a lot of people don't. So, that irked the daylights out.
There's and like people standing around.
I haven't been back to that specific establishment in years. So
right, yeah. I mean, I was just returning something actually at Walmart, and let's read Danielle's. It's a good one. Mission Barbecue Harrisburg is awesome as far as customer service goes. They say hi as soon as you come in, and they're always so nice. Yeah, I mean that's there, and that's the other thing is they have a great reputation for what they do in the community too, and giving back and all that. And I think that it really stands out when there's thanks for that comment. But yeah, I was waiting in line. I mean, there was one person working. There was 3 people standing around, going over here, going over there. The line behind me just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, is anybody else working here? Like I definitely, I kind of just had to wait. There's just situations that I think with the service that sometimes people just don't care, or they just, depending on what it is. But yeah, interesting situation recently for me is more just on a responsive level with management at a business that I had some concerns with, and I just didn't get any responses at all. I sent many emails, called, went in person, and it's just basically being dismissed. And I just think, how do you treat somebody like that? And it affects their living situation. You get frustrated. I don't know what to do. And, it's about noise. It's a noise complaint. Okay. But I just got really upset that there wasn't able to be a conversation had to address my issues. And that's where I think the customer service absolutely goes back to how you're even responding to people. And then this is what happens is people take it into their hands. Do you call the cops? Do you approach this person? You're trying to do it the right way, and you're trying to, but am I I'm the bad one because I'm complaining. Now I'm like I'm a bad customer because I'm complaining and complaining and complaining and complaining, and it's frustrating because like I said, it takes a lot for me to do that. But it's even more, and I'm getting more mad because I'm not being listened to and it's not being addressed. And at that point, I think there's people you have a route. Do you just deal with it? Do you involve the police? That's the thing is like, what is the next step that you do? Do you just suck it up and take it? I mean, what do you do when you're not being responded? And the customer service is horrible. And, what do you do? Do you not use that, not use that person anymore, just say again, do you leave? It's difficult. And I think for me, I got an email back. Finally, I heard back, and it was pretty much, we're not going to deal with this situation. You can go. And not happy with that response, but okay, and my response, and I'm waiting a few days because I'm not going to fire off an email like they did, but my response would be like, I appreciate your consideration and I'll deal with it in other ways, but that's all about how you treat the customer, obviously. Without throwing them under the bus, but
yeah,
I think I summed it up.
Yeah, I know you.
The noise.
I know you're, and I would listen. And I know a little bit about the situation, but I would have been. I mean, the Italianness would have came out in me, and I would have been in the manager's office, expressing my gratitude towards his or her level of service.
Lack of. Yeah, but at what point? Okay, so that's the whole thing, is like, we're talking about customer service, and I think this is great. We're talking about bad experiences and good experiences. At what point do you say, I'm not going to get anywhere with this? And I'm not saying like walk away, but what if the level of service that you're getting from, just the regular staff, and then there's managers, and then there's owners, if it's all the same, you're not going to get it. When do you realize that you're not going to get anywhere? Because if you're getting that kind of service and you're complaining to the manager and you're complaining to the owner and they're not doing anything, that's a problem, in my opinion.
No, that is definitely a problem. And one of the things that I would do if run it up the chain. I'm a big person on running it up the chain of command. Like, I'm not just going to go over somebody's head. When I was a manager, I would always want the opportunity to make the situation better. And if I can't, and then you went above my head, so be it. Like, I get that. But for me, in that situation, if it was that, right, if you've gone up that chain, I mean, the only thing I could see left to do is the Better Business Bureau is definitely an avenue.
A bad review on Google.
Yeah, and just light them up.
That's what I'm very surprised with bad customer service, that people don't care. And there's always going to be someone to complain about dumb stuff. Absolutely. I think when it comes to somebody's livelihood and their stress levels and, going about their routine and working, I just, to not handle it appropriately is a problem. But that people are you worried or not worried about reviews these days? Do you think that people just don't care if they give bad service, and then somebody goes online and says this, or 10 people or 20 people or 30 people consistently? I mean, reviews is my industry, with like invitations and with weddings and brides. I mean, that's what they do. They go online and they look at reviews. They're going to use a service on a business that they have that has good reviews. But are you in a situation where you're giving bad service and you just don't care because you're still going to get service from somebody else? Like, okay, bye, that's okay. We'll get somebody else. So I don't know why people don't care. With reviews these days are huge, but maybe they just don't care.
Well, here's a big one. That I'm on that website I was on, the research that I did. And it says it right here, number 20, it says 50% of customers believe their feedback doesn't go to anyone who actually can act on it or care.
It just goes to the public to see it, right? Yeah. So you're just saying it doesn't go anywhere to the actual business. But it shows through the public, Yeah.
Well, now it does. Yeah. And especially more people are going to read those reviews, but I think it starts from the top. Like you said, I feel like there are businesses out there that just don't care, but there are some businesses out there that have a monopoly on the market. And so, like, for instance, this is not a personal, like, I'm not using this service, but I technically do. In Delaware at my in-laws' beach house, there's one cable provider, one internet provider there, and they literally do not give, pardon my language, a shit about what is going on in. Sure. They just don't care because hey, they're the only person in town. They're the only game in town, right? So like you would call, they'd say they show up, they didn't show up, right? They wouldn't fix anything. They never had anything to fix it. They'd be like, well, we had to order the part, right? But what is interesting is that my in-laws just got a letter from another cable provider that says, hey, in 2021, we will now be in your area to service your area. And all of a sudden, another email came, and it was like, hey, we thank you for being a loyal customer. We're looking to up our customer level of customer service. We would love your feedback. So now that there's competition, obviously now this group is now having to pay attention to what people are saying. But it's so important. It's so important to, like I said, you look at every review with a grain of salt, because, like I said, people get emotional about these things, and they might say some things that are not necessarily true. But I think you need to take every customer complaint with the understanding that you need to find something that you can rectify in there. What a big thing is that I don't see people doing, and I've seen a couple businesses do it. They've actually responded to people on the review. So, Joe Schmo will be like, hey, I had this bad experience. This place sucks. The food sucks. You suck, right? And like the general manager will reply, be like, hey, Bobby, I'm sorry you had such a terrible experience. In this situation, we would love to have you come back in on us, make it better. So I think that's a big thing, is, like you said, responding to.
Absolutely. They've always said that you want to respond to all your reviews, especially the bad ones. Like, you want to show a response, right? So I had 100 5-star reviews, 1 1-star review. And it took me down to a 4.5, let's just say 4.8. I don't know. And it said horrible customer service or something, right? So I just would reply and say, I'm really sorry about about your experience, that it wasn't up to par, that it wasn't to your expectations. I've tried to call you. I've tried to email you. I tried to discuss this. I wanted to resolve this for you. I wanted to make it better. And I put that on there so that everyone can see, because they do look at how you respond to these bad reviews online. Absolutely. And, when you put that, it's like, oh, that was a crazy customer. So, obviously writing this bad review, and for the most, all the other ones are consistently good, then obviously, I think you can tell from those, but yeah, I definitely think that you should respond. I think for me, when I had some issues with customers, I went and gave them something extra, give them something. So it's a discount off something else, or free this, had a delay in shipping or printing, not my fault, but it's the vendor that I'm using. It's still my business, right? So I said, yeah, I'm really sorry. I'd like to give you 50 free thank you notes, just to make them happy, because they're going to go and say, well, yeah, this happened, but they went above and beyond to fix it and gave me this. And then, they're going to come back and they're going to say, oh, we still want to use you for this, like going above and maybe just giving something if there was a mistake,
Yeah, I think just extending the olive branch and trying to make the situation better makes you look better, regardless of what happened, regardless if it was your fault or if it was just a miscommunication or something along those lines. People want to see somebody responding, that they care, right? That they care enough to respond, care enough to say, hey, come back in. We'll take care of you. So sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought of something too, is I didn't want to forget this, is that, and I forgot. It's like, it just came into my mind. No. It's about excuses. Like when I got to a certain point in my business or my life, I was like, I don't want to hear excuses anymore. I gave so many excuses for why this, why that, why this. Nobody wants to hear them, And I think that I tried to give the explanation so that they understood, oh, hey, maybe, when there was something. But I think last year at some point there might have been an issue, and I just said, you're absolutely right. I'm going to take X amount of dollars off your order or something, right? I was just like, you were absolutely right. Like, why fight it? Why explain it? Oh, I had this happen and this and blah, blah, blah. Nope, you're right. Here, because I think that's what people want to hear, is just, they don't want to keep going back and forth and listen to excuses either.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's what it comes down to, is listening and caring, and no one wants to hear your excuse, right? Just make it right. And at the end of the day, you're going to be fine. But but I know we're up against it because we have some.
Oh,
things
I'm ready.
Right, but
I'm ready.
I think it's that time for the Millennial meme of the week. Mel, it is your turn, and this is so ironic that you had the experience that led to this podcast today. So it's only fitting that you get to do the meme today.
Right.
So
Millennial meme. Yeah. So I saw some pretty good ones actually. I might pop two up here, but I'm gonna go with my first one, and it's a guy with some headphones, and it says, "Interviewer, why do you want to work in customer service? Me. I'm really good at apologizing for things that aren't my fault." So I put this up there because yes, I mean, somebody is probably dying laughing because they have to do that as their job. Okay. But I think for me, I would have appreciated somebody, for me, is just to, even though it's not your fault, right? Just do something, handle it, do something. Because I think we've all done that. A lot of times it's not our fault, but you just have to fix it. Sometimes it's just figuring out. But I'm going to throw another one up just real quick because I thought it was funny. And it says, customer service is easy if there aren't any customers.
Yeah, that's the best one. I
thought that was good too.
Yeah.
That's good too, because you know what? You're right. Like, if you're in that industry and you're, customer service, as we all are, sure, it'd be great if there weren't any customers, but you know what? There are.
Yeah, my job would be a lot easier.
It's not easy.
Without customers. Customer service would be a lot easier. But then again, I wouldn't have a business, right?
Exactly.
Like buying anything.
It's difficult, okay?
Yeah. Times are rough, right? But anyways, guys, hopefully you got a little value today out of our thoughts on customer service, some of our experiences, right? But before we get out of here, we jet on to the weekend, right? Because the weekend's here. Mel, it's time for your Mel's moment of the week.
Mel's moment. So I'm gonna say for us is to if we are in the service industry and we're dealing with customers, is to keep an open mind, the empathy and the perspective of what's going on. We're all going through stuff with COVID. We've talked about the tensions are high. I think that we have to look at perspective and people who are going through different situations, and if they are complaining or if they need help or they're looking for a resolution to a conflict or to something, try to deal with it in the right way and quickly, because it's just going to stew for everyone. It's going to make things awkward. And I think when we're going through situations this weekend and on both sides, so if we're the customer, try to just understand, like you said, the situation, and if it's the other way around, let's kill them with kindness.
There you go. I love that. Kill them with kindness, right? It's hard. One of my bosses used to tell me it's really hard to yell at somebody that's smiling at you. So I would smile a lot when I was dealing with an irate customer, because you look terrible if you're yelling at somebody that's smiling. So
right.
And it worked. It worked all the time.
There you go.
So
I love it.
But
be kind.
Anyways, guys, hopefully, like I said, you got some value out of that today. We appreciate everybody that jumped on, that interacted with us. We really do. Make sure you check us out next week, right? Is next week Black Friday?
Next week is Black Friday. Ooh.
Maybe we'll do like a top 10 millennial products to have in 2020. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure something. So something, and support your local businesses. Right?
Shop local, absolutely.
Yeah, shop local. Definitely
continue to shop local. Yeah.
Yeah. So, buy
some holiday cards.
There you go. Check it out, guys. Everybody needs cards these days. So go check it out. So. But anyways, guys, we appreciate everybody that jumped on. We will see you next week for another episode of MillenniYell. But in the meantime, make some good memories with your family. Have a good one. We'll talk to you real soon.
Bye.